Hello and welcome to RingTalk, Series 3, Episode 6. Obviously me, Kevin Campion, joined by Steve Goodwin and Josh Goodwin. Slightly different format for RingTalk, gentlemen. It's not on the...
No, we got rid of the annoying Martin Theobald.
We got rid of Theobald.
For a week.
Like I say, he is making the comeback next week.
Reliability.
So obviously we're going to try and do this format a little bit more now as well, in just us talking about different situations. Going to keep RingTalk the same sort of thing. We're going to review our cars, but talk about more stuff in boxing, things happening. We'll get straight into it. So the first thing, small hall boxing, people would have known, we'll talk about as well, is the fact of the lack of small hall shows currently and promoters.
Especially in London.
Especially in London. So why do we think that is, Steve? Why do we think there's promoters not promoting?
Well, there's a problem at York, a massive problem at York Hall, and there's a problem generally. So if you take York Hall, the boxing board have restricted it to 10 fights. It's just not financially viable at York Hall with 10 fights. So you're seeing, I mean, Nielsen had a show 2 weeks ago, they cancelled. Mm-hmm. That's not the first people who have cancelled York Hall. We have never ever cancelled a York Hall show in 12 years, but we have staged fights and lost money.
We've wanted to.
We have wanted to. But we've staged and we just battled for it. That's just one thing that's high in our reputation, that we've never ever cancelled a London show.
We've been cancelled, but we've never.
Yeah, we've been cancelled by
this weekend as well, and COVID, etc., etc.
But we've never voluntarily cancelled any show. Financial reasons, and also boxers are finding. There's no doubt in my mind, boxers are finding it harder to sell tickets for small hall, and promoters are struggling to get sponsors and get people in. Without naming certain promoters have just stopped promoting this year, and it's been very difficult. It's very difficult. We're staging a show this Saturday. It's going to lose money. And
people don't believe that, do they, in terms of that? There's always this misconception with promoters that they think you're making 10, 15, £20,000 a show.
That obviously doesn't happen. We were less likely to lose money going back pre-COVID, because what a lot of Goodwin boxing shows would have done was started off with 25 fights, ended up with 12 to 15, and then you can start to break even and sometimes make money if you had a good ticket setter. Now at York Hall, the box would restrict us to 10 fights only. It makes it really, really hard to make it work with the venue, the security, away boxer costs going up, even sending tickets out's gone up. Everything as you can imagine, in this country at the moment in the world, it's just really expensive.
And people don't realise how many fights you lose, is it? In the card that just in our cards we put together, the percentage of fights that we start off with to what we get
30%?
At least, isn't it?
It's got to be more 40%.
Yeah, it's got to be nearly 40. So that's a clear distinction to make. It's 40% of every fight that we put on doesn't make it to the end. So if you start off with 10 fights and only 10 fights,
you end up with 6.
You end up with 6 fights, which 10 isn't viable. 6 becomes even
more.
And
we've done a show with 6 this year as well.
I know.
Yeah, I think the biggest pinch we've felt, especially in London compared to other venues, York Hall, I think the 10 fight rule is really making it hard for us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Those extra 2 fights would make a lot of difference between us losing money and breaking even.
Mm-hmm. So do you continue? Do you think that promoters are going to find it hard? Do you think there's a place in time?
Well, I think in London, especially York Hall, I genuinely think you're going to see promoters ceasing. There'll be less. It doesn't. These numbers. We know the numbers, and we are consistent in doing shows. But we know the numbers, and boxers are not getting on shows because there aren't enough shows for boxers to get on. So now boxers have got a problem. If boxers are with managers that are not promoting, they're in trouble. Mm-hmm. They're in trouble to get on shows.
Yeah, because so there's not the cards about. And so talking about that, obviously compounded at the weekend. Obviously, Her Majesty the Queen was passed away, and unfortunately the boxing at the weekend was cancelled. Hugely criticised by the thing. Our show at York Hall was cancelled. Obviously, the big show at the O2 was cancelled, and that obviously has an effect on it as well. What is your views on it personally? Your own views?
Well, I have a different view to Ben Shalom and Adam Smith at Sky. I have a totally different view. My view is we should have run, because the Queen's died is a very sad thing. Of course, everybody has been paying their respects. My God, you can't. The television is driving me nuts now because you can't avoid it. Mm-hmm. So there's a level of, in my opinion, of overkill. And you want to pay your respects. I would as well. But there's a funeral day to pay respects. There are certain things to pay respects. You could have staged the boxing, done 10 bells, done a national anthem, and I think that's a better way of paying respect than cancelling it. By cancelling it, you've cost people their livelihoods, boxers their income. Now, the country's hard enough anyway, and people are struggling. Really, to keep cancelling everything? They've got a bank holiday next Monday, that's fair. But so many people are losing money out of things being cancelled. And I don't think that's a respect to... You're supposed to, as a Queen, you're supposed to be the person that looks after your people and represent the people. Well, if you're representing your people who are struggling, why deprive everybody of income? Let them stage their events and let them show their respect that way. So I think it was a really, really, really poor decision.
Yeah, I have a slightly different... I think it was a very difficult decision to make.
I'm with you. I think I saw a lot of people criticise the board for it, and well, you're not happy with it, and I understand why they've done it. So I can't criticise them, because I think if you ask me on Friday morning if they should cancel it, I would say they've got to cancel because another sports are running. If you'd asked me at 2:00 should they carry on, they should have carried on. So it's a bit catch-22. In hindsight, the board shouldn't have cancelled it, but I understand why they did. To be honest, I think the whole country's gone a bit mental. Like, there's no sport should be cancelled unless policing reasons. If you can show respect in other forms, as my dad said. But yeah, it should have carried on, but it didn't. But I understand why they cancelled it.
But the good news is this weekend is going to carry on as normal. Our show at Your Call. We've got the double-barreled show. We've got the amateur show in the morning. Guildford City Boxing Club run the amateur show in the morning. That's going to come to an end. Obviously, then our pro show is going to run underneath. So, again, the second one of the kind. Again, breaking new ground with this, trying to use our platform to help the amateur boxers. What was the thinking behind that? So I know you briefly talked about it before, but what's the thinking behind that in terms of bringing...
Well, it gives the amateur kids who are coming through the chance of fighting at Your Call. We've covered a lot of the costs of the day, so that they can hire Your Call for a very nominal amount rather than having to pay the full money, and it enables them to go in a ring that is primarily used for professional boxing at an affordable cost, and it just helps people have great experiences, and that's what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's no gain for us in terms of that. It just allows us to help, the amateur boxers and do that. And
we don't get enough credit. We at Goodwin Boxing do not get enough credit for what we do, and that's something that will never change. We get it for some, but generally people don't realise the things that we do behind the scenes that help people, and it's not just about the money. I mean, and if it's about money, we don't ever promote a show again.
No, yeah.
We just stop now.
Did you want to talk about the card now? Did you want to come back to the later?
Let's go through the card.
Obviously, we talked about that. Obviously, got the amateur show first of all. We got GB Fight Series after that. Did you want to give us a rundown of who's on the card?
Let's go through it. So we got first fight for us, Mitchell Frierson, lovely kid. He's having a 6-rounder, and we're building him towards the southern area. He's trained by Paul Kavanagh, who's a really good trainer, and we're looking forward to building a relationship with Mitchell. He's a really nice chap. I met him in London. We had a good chat.
First time on our show.
And he's a really, really nice lad. He's formerly with MTK. His contract came to the end, so he came to us, and we're looking forward to getting him towards a southern area title. He fights Martin Shaw. There's no pushover, so that's really good. Mikey Sack is another MTK fighter that we signed. His contract came to an end, and he's really super talented, and I'm expecting to get this fight out of the way and then look at titles for him. He's fighting Lee Hallett over 6. Ross McGuigan, I call him the mad cruiserweight. He will fight anybody, anywhere, any place. You offer him a fight with a Coley, he'll be there tomorrow with his bags. He's really, really, he wants to go for a southern area title. He's 36 years of age. He's had 2 fights. He's having an 8-rounder this Saturday, and he's hoping that will persuade the board to let him have a straight shot at the southern area. And seeing as nobody else wants to fight for it, hopefully they may consider it. But Ross McGuigan's an exciting fighter to watch, to be fair to him. I don't know, why he turned pro so late, but he's exciting, and he just wants to get a shot at a title and fight anybody. Joe Kamishi is very, very talented young featherweight. He fights Jake Pollard, and Joe is really, really excited to watch, and I really enjoy watching him.
Really, really impressive in his debut as well. Very professional. Yeah.
Andre Santa. Now, I've got to give this man some props, because in his last fight, there were 2 fighters that both lost their opponents on the week of the fight, and he stepped up a weight to fight Lewis Frimpong out of his weight category. He did lose, but he put his thing on the line, and he's now back in his right weight category. But I've got to give that man a lot of props, because he took a fight on that was a 50-50 fight, but it wasn't really in his weight category. So I'm looking forward to seeing him get
We
back
don't
on
see
the
that
ring
often,
show.
do we, Steve? In terms of that, we don't see that often. We see it often in the week where sometimes we lose the opponents. We rarely see two prospects, only in Korea, I think it was 2-0 and 1-0, wasn't it, that turned around and said, yeah, we'll fight each other because they wanted to fight that bad. We just don't see that very often.
But you know what? I think that's the way it's got to change now. Because
Yeah,
there are
absolutely.
there's not one cruiserweight journeyman in the UK anymore, apart from Ozzy Jervio, who retires next month. So that's it. They're gonna. You've got cruiserweights aren't going to sit there building up 7, 8, 9, 10 records unless you're on a TV show where they can pay 10 grand for a foreign opponent or 5 grand for a foreign opponent. So it's going to have to change. It's just going to have to change. It's just how it is. And fighters don't want to fight certain weight categories. You know, it's just they're going to have to sort of not fight. It's going to be really simple. So full credit to Andre. Onda Ozgul makes his first fight for us. He's really talented super middleweight. I think he's going to get a couple of 4s or 4 and a couple of 6s and then move into title contention. He's just,
Been out of action for a period of a couple of medical issues that are now cleared up and sorted. So he's excited to be back. Been forgotten about a little bit, hasn't he?
Yeah, but he'll make a statement and come back. Debut of Mike Murphy, who's with Dave Sadler, who also trains Denis Denikajev, the Southern Area super lightweight
one of the most
champion.
underrated coaches in this country.
Brilliant coach, isn't he?
Amazing.
Brilliant coach. And his charge takes on Jordan Granham. Jordan always appears to test these middleweights up. So Jordan's back. Tyler Marriott, who's a pleasure I want to say this, one of the fighters that's a total pleasure to deal with. You get it's just nothing. He's not fazed by anything. He's just a great kid.
And late addition to the card, obviously, because the last
He was due to fight last week. He goes in with Michael Mooney. So that's an add-on. And Emmanuel Zion, super talented kid. Been very difficult to match him because, but we've managed to get George Rogers in. He's coming up 2 weight categories, going up from super lightweight to he's going up from super lightweight to, in fact, super welterweight and possibly just above.
He's got the talent. He's fine.
But he'll be fine. But he's coming up in weight to do it because he wouldn't have got to fight otherwise. And he's just a talented kid. But he's
late edition due to fight last week, but due to the cancellation from the major.
And finally, and another one, Lewis Frimpong, who was due to fight last week. He fights Christian Narvaez over 6. Lewis is eyeing the Southern Area title shot after this fight. So there's some really good talent and some kids to watch who are, remember Mikey Saki was in the golden contract. I think it was a golden contract that didn't end up with a contract, did it?
He fought for some WBC.
He fought WBC. Yeah, I mean, there was at the end of that golden contract. It didn't end up being a contract as such, did it, for the winner? But it gave them good opportunity to fight on a good platform, and he was in that fight. So he's ready to rebuild, and we're going to help him rebuild. Ross McGuigan is just nuts. And
so there's no title fight on it, but it's a really good card.
Emmanuel Zion's is really talented. Frimpong's going for the title. Tyler Marriott's building a career. Mike Murphy, I'm looking forward to see. Osgul's already 13 unbeaten, I think it is. He's ready to go. Joe Kamishi's a champion waiting to happen, and Mitchell Frierson's going for titles. These kids are all going to be headlining in the next 8 to 36 months.
And in terms of tickets still available, obviously can still get them from the boxes and online. So that's the card wrapped up. We're going to talk about, obviously next week's, you're going to cover next week's, but interesting talking about fights that's relevant. We see the bit yesterday. Whether it's true or not, we don't know as of yet, but Eubank Senior seemed to have put out a statement, or a reporter seems to have reported that he's pulled out Chris Eubank Jr.
All I can say is I was dealing with Sauerlands last night, and this is Sauerland, about potentially Brad Paul's fight on the card, and there was no mention of Eubank pulling out. So I think that's probably, it's all about publicity, isn't it? And I think that's Chris Eubank, if he pulled out of this fight saying he doesn't agree with the terms he's already signed to, would look ridiculous. So
is there a risk that it's coming down to light from it?
Well, he should have thought about that
essentially, but as I say,
he should have done before you signed a contract, because you technically, if you want to change terms of a contract, it's going to put you in a very, very dicey position when all that money's been spent on the show. If you're going to pull out fake injury, yes, but to say you're pulling out because you want to change the terms is difficult.
Anyway. I think Eubank's going to miss the weight. I think he's going to come in over, and I think he's going to pay the fine. I don't think he's going to matter, and he's still going to fight. I think that's what's going to happen.
Is it? You think so?
That's my opinion. I think he knows he's never going to make the weight. There's a clause, if he comes so far over, there's a certain financial penalties. I think he'll pay the financial penalties. I think he'll take that on the chin and just be bigger and
He's going to win. He's going to win anyway, I think.
Yeah,
but,
yeah,
there's a certain degree that you literally kill yourself to make the weight, and there's nothing left of you. So you've got to be careful.
That's why I don't think he'll go that low.
I don't even think that fight's competitive.
No.
No,
Is Eubank too big?
Don't think it's competitive. Don't think it's remotely competitive. I think Conor Benn loses, and then he goes back and says, "I dared.
Dared to be great.
I dared to be great."
Yeah, I agree. The only way Ben wins for me is if Eubank is completely weight drained, which I agree with you. I don't think they'll allow that to happen.
Let me tell you something. Eubank is not. They are not stupid people. They are super clued up. You may be right, but whatever they do, he's going to win. And Conor Benn has dared.
Don't forget, Conor Benn's a very good fighter himself. He's got a very good trainer, Tony Sims.
Yeah, I've got utmost respect.
There's weight categories.
I've got the utmost respect for Conor Benn. I think Conor Benn can fight at a really high level.
Yeah, he's a good fighter, but you're saying would you say Eubank's more talented, or you say it's just
Well, the only way Ben can win is by detonating or outworking him. Now,
they're working. That's definitely
the outworking is possible, but he's not. But Eubank's got a great chin. He's been hit by some big punches, much heavier people.
George Groves.
So he's not going to hurt him. He's not going to hurt him. Now he could outwork him, but you've got to remember that you've got a big man hitting Conor Benn back.
And Conor
Benn, remember, was put down by Cedric Peno. So he has been hurt by somebody when he's been hit. So you've been hit by a super lightweight and hurt. He's now fighting a middleweight, a super middleweight. So when Eubank does hit him, I'm not saying Eubank is the biggest concussive power puncher, but he put Williams down. So I do expect Eubank to win and win by stoppage.
Just being too big.
Too big.
I mean, Conor Benn he's improved so much. I mean, unbelievable. I think he's probably one of the most improved fighters
for sure.
we've seen
For
in the
sure.
thing. He's been incredible. But
and can also
weight
say,
categories
been brilliantly promoted by Eddie Hearn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliantly
Yeah, very much
matched, brilliantly promoted. But there's so much money in this fight. Sometimes you say, I'll take a chance. Because boxing's boxing. Anything can happen. I don't think it's remotely... I think Eubank wins, but you never know. It's a fight. And he doesn't lose any... Conor Benn loses nothing by losing this fight.
No. And I also think Conor Benn promotes himself very well. I think he's been very genuine. I think what you see is that. I think that's been a thing. So it'd be interesting to see. Well, if it is a ploy... We're talking about it, and we might not have talked about it today, so it could be great. Talking about big fights, obviously, Goodwin boxing fighters. We've got maybe a potential big fight we can't talk about, but Brad Pauls has potentially got a big fight coming up.
Since they're in talks for getting him on the Ben Eubank undercard, so hopefully that can be pulled off. We've got Lauren Parker. We're hoping to see her in something like a WBC International on the day before Ben Eubank on the 7th of October. Richard Poxon, the matchmaker for Unified, is trying to source an opponent at the moment. So really, we could have Lauren ranked in the world top 15 or top 10 within a few weeks.
It's been great for Lauren as well. She signed with us. She never actually fought one of her cards. We got assigned to a TV promoter in terms of a Unified, and now she's on the edge of an international title. So it can be done. It can be done. So we'll review the card at the weekend before we want to talk about. One of the things. So obviously the cards this weekend, we've got the zone card, we've got Canelo Golovkin.
I'm not even going to watch it because
it's pay-per-view as well. I'm not paying.
But I wouldn't even watch it for free because to me, it's going to be a one-sided beatdown.
Do you think it's gone under the radar a bit? This
I think Golovkin is shot. I've watched his last fight.
Yeah, I think that no.
He's 40 years of age.
He's not the fight he was 4 or 5 years ago. Agreed. However, you don't beat the people he's been beating still.
But I think it becomes a one-sided beatdown, and I don't want to watch.
Do you think Canelo is that much better than him? He's not done.
I think
he didn't even come close to beating him up in the first two fights. Obviously,
no, but there's a difference.
Very controversial results.
No, I agree, but this is not the Golovkin from then. And
yeah,
Canelo
he's going to have to be really sharp.
Canelo's at the same. I think he is. I think he's.
So you think it's one-sided beatdown? You think it's...
I think Canelo wins, but I don't think it's a one-sided beatdown. I think Golovkin will be competitive.
I didn't even know it was on this weekend. That's how much it's.
Anyway, we'll see.
I knew it was on it,
but I
don't. This weekend.
I don't want to watch it because I don't like watching one-sided beatdowns, and I think it's going to be that. Mm-hmm. So if I find out the next day it's been competitive, I'll catch it up and watch it.
Okay, you got the Frank Warren card.
Yeah, Denzel Bentley, who had a close win over Linus Udofia, our boxer for the British title.
Great fight. Got to come back to that. It was a great fight.
It was a great fight.
Amazing fight.
He fights Marcus Morrison. I think Denzel beats Marcus Morrison. I think it's a really good defence for him. I think it's a well-matched fight. So yeah, I fancy Denzel to retain his British title. And Linus was he lost the fight in the last round. And,
Yeah. And Linus and Brad have both been sparring Denzel in preparation for that on there as well.
Yeah. So I fancy that. Ellis Zorro, who won the cruiserweight prize fight, he now fights Dex Spellman.
I'm a boxer tournament.
So I was Ultimate Boxer, sorry. I think good matchup for Ellis. I mean, Dex Spellman was a light heavyweight that's come up to cruiserweight. I think Ellis Zorro showed his experience. He's, you got to remember, he only had 3 amateur fights.
Yeah.
And I thought in prize fight, I mean, he beat Jamie Smith out. Jamie Smith in the semi-final. It was his ring know-how nous that won him that fight.
Yeah.
And I think he
It's
can
a good
beat.
fight. I think it'll be competitive first of all. I just think Ellis will work him out, and
I think so. I think Ellis can win. I think Ellis wins that. I think a good matchup again by Warrens. I think they've done a good matchup, and I think Ellis will go on and fight for titles. Only time will tell how far he can go. I would fancy Jamie Smith in a long distance rematch. I would all day long, but Ellis did win the first fight 29-28, but he only won 2 rounds to 1, and Jamie wasn't anywhere near what I expect, but I would love that fight again over 10 rounds for a title. But full credit to Ellis. He can only do what he's done, which is win every fight, and I think he'll win again on Saturday.
Okay, Southern's got a card. Not much on the Southern's card
Nothing of interest
to
to me on
try and talk about that. I just wrote down here to talk about one thing that maybe don't know. For our November shows with the cost of living, we've decided to slash the prices of ringside tickets. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? With the prices?
Yeah, I mean, basically, most people at York will charge 100 for ringside. We charge 75, but I think people are finding it hard. So we've decided to put them down to 65 for the November shows, so that people, if they want a ringside seat, can save £10 on the seats. It's the normal standards have got to be 50 nowadays for fewer the cost, but it's not much more there to have a ringside. So it enables more people probably to think, I'll have a ringside seat rather than.
It's just the cost of living craft. Basically, this is the reason we've done it, isn't it? In terms of that,
Just trying to help people out if they want to have a little bit of a nicer experience with the guaranteed seat. Just gives them.
That's a good move. I think I wanted to mention it because I don't think, again, you said we don't get the credit thing. I think that's something to think. Right, so one thing I want to talk about, maybe controversial. I'm going to get a little bit of hate from this. Obviously, we mentioned earlier about promoters not promoting. Promoters get a lot of stick from fighters, trainers, everything else like that, as in making so much money. One thing I wanted to talk about is if there's so much money to be made in promoting, and if it is so easy to get rid of ticket deals, why do we not see more former fighters promoting?
Because there is no money in it, and everybody stands off. I've been told. I remember I had this debate with Terry Chappandama, and I said to him, "Do one show, do one show. I'll put the bond up. Do one show."
And that's so the bond first of all, right? So you need a bond before you
£10,000.
You need to lodge a bond,
which is understandable to cover
in case you default on your payments. Yeah. But I said to Terry,
it's probably an argument that's probably not enough actually.
But do one show because when you say, "Oh, the fights aren't good enough, you should match this one with that one, and people will come through the door and pay," it's not true. You don't understand. Do a show, and I say that to everybody. Stop saying this. Do a show. If you think you know how to do it, do a show. The reason people don't do a show. It's not easy to do, but people like to sound saying, "You're making loads of money." No, we're not. Oh, you should match this with this. If you put 2 non-ticket sellers together, don't worry about it because the public come through the door. No, they won't.
Well,
it's just.
I think the way to look at it, I don't want to be disparaging towards our level, but it's small boxing. It's not. You look at the Hearns, the Warrens, boxers. They
don't have the profile.
They're on TV. We're more like a League 2, Conference North, conference level. That's where we are. You look at their wages compared to they're effectively semi-pro down in the conference. They get paid maybe £100 a game.
Yeah.
And football's the biggest sport in this country. And at that level, some of those teams are lucky to get 500 people through the door.
Yeah.
Boxing is nowhere near as big as football. So how is boxing going to get more people than professional football still does? Do you know what I mean?
Like, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's a lot harder than people give credit for. Okay, so we don't see many. Spencer Fearon is a former fighter we known before that promoted for a little while.
Yeah, Joe Elford's a former fighter. He promotes down in Kent.
But he's not doing shows at the back end of the show.
No, he's not doing a show till February, so he's pulling away at the moment because he's not silly. He sees.
But you see the number of fighters that you see turn over. You see 1s, 2s, 3s, or even going big in careers. You see very few of that. I mean, we're seeing very few promoters come through.
Pat Barrett up north.
Pat Barrett, former fighter. Yeah.
You got certain people now.
Cole Greaves, ex-boxer.
There are loads. What am I talking about? Yeah.
But there are a few.
But there's not loads, is there?
No, there's not. there's not exactly, and we
Steffi Ball.
we've got more fighters wanting to go onto our shows than we can handle.
Mm-hmm.
If there's enough promoters, they wouldn't be in that situation because the fighters would have their choice. There isn't a choice at the moment. There's not enough promoters in the London, especially the London area, to get all the fighters out of this shit. There's not.
And I just don't see there being many, because of the margins. I just don't see there being more promoters. I just can't see there being more promoters coming through.
Well, who have you got in London at the moment? You've got Lee Eaton doing a couple of shows.
With Mo Pride.
But Mo Pride's now going with Lee Eaton, so they've now merged. You've got
Nielsen.
the Nielsens, but they've had they were going to run last week, but they aborted the one before.
They did it with Warren.
You got Dean. You got Dean White in Tolworth.
Yeah.
He's doing a good job.
But that's not very much, is it?
No. In terms of
that's it.
About how many. Yeah.
That's it. And you got all these fighters trying to get on shows, so they've got problems. And we've got a duty to our own fighters, not other people's fighters.
Yeah.
So when we now we've had to restructure another show. We might have tried to get other people's fighters on November shows, but highly unlikely to happen now because we've got to look after our own first. And there are lots of boxers out there who are going to be stuck. And this is why it's very. You've got to actually understand who you're signing with, who you're signing with, what they what's going to happen, because too many people sign with people who can't get them on shows.
It's very difficult if you haven't got a promotional arm attached, isn't it, to guarantee fighters. I think where we're lucky is we know when our show's being held, we know when we can place fighters, and we know how many fighters we can have and to place. It's very difficult if you haven't got that approach because you're always reliant on other people, and that's an advantage we have over others. But right, anything else you want to talk about? I think that's.
No, it's we'll look at next week's show. Which will come on.
Martin's back next week.
Well, we've added
The
liability.
But we've got a great show next week on the 24th.
Yeah.
Two brilliant fights at the top of the card.
Yeah, two one that's been announced today, and obviously we've got the Webber.
We'll discuss that with Martin next week.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and we will catch up with you soon.